Wow. This chair is making noises. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah. Let's talk about rights and responsibilities. You know, the sort of things that nobody ever wants to actually talk about because responsibilities scare them. We're talking about it. A big surprise, but I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson's ideas, specifically. I'm not like an idol worshipper or something, but he does have some good ideas. And one of the things that he has spoken about repeatedly is that in the modern world, the modern societies, people have this very deep connection to all of their rights, and they'll fight for their rights, and they talk about their rights, the rights that they have, the rights that they're entitled to, the rights that you should give them. But nobody likes to talk about their responsibilities. The responsibilities are the other side of the rights coin. For every responsibility, there is a right. For every right, there is a responsibility. In the Nuremberg discussion, we talked about how many of the ideas that we have come to take for granted and know as the normal part of everyday living were not so normal and should not be taken for granted because of how easily they could be taken away, or misunderstood, or misinterpreted, or otherwise toyed with in a way that could make them unworkable. People want all sorts of rights. I'm sure we've heard about this in particular lately, where everybody's, I have the right to this and I have the right to that, which usually means I'm entitled to this. But people have this tendency, at least people that I've met, have this tendency to completely ignore the fact that with every right comes a responsibility. And if you have a right to something, you have the responsibility to either have worked for it or to protect the things that make it possible. Unless it's a God-given right, there is nothing that you have for free. And even if it is a God-given right, you still need to use that right responsibly. You need to be able to say, I know why I have these rights, and therefore I'm not going to misuse them. There are far too many people who have no idea why they have rights, and therefore they don't care if they misuse them. They have no intention of using them appropriately, and they have no qualms about taking other people's rights away. And I've seen this come up often, that there's this idea that rights give you power. And that's a very strange one to me, because rights don't give you anything. You are given rights, either from God or the government. God can't take back the rights he gives you, but the government or some other power can take them back. And if they can take them back, they are not given to you. They are simply lent to you. Responsibility, on the other hand, does give you power. This is something that it took me a very long time to understand, and it's one of the reasons that I do have a great respect for Jordan Peterson, because he is one of the biggest reasons that I came to understand the purpose and the usefulness, the magnitude, the incredible nature of responsibility. You don't get rights for free. You get responsibilities, and the responsibilities give you rights. And the responsibilities also give you power. The power comes from the work that you have to do to maintain your responsibilities. The power comes from you finding where you need to do better. It comes from finding what the next step is. It comes from finding how to move your life forward. Those are your responsibilities. You have children? Your responsibilities are to care for them and to make sure that they become productive, good, useful members of society. That they don't, for example, ruin other people's lives by running around in apartments and banging on walls. I'm just saying that from experience. You have the responsibility to your workplace to do the right thing and to earn your paycheck. They are paying you. You have a right to payment as long as you perform your responsibilities. You have the responsibilities of maintaining your own life so that the rest of the country doesn't have to support you. You have the responsibility of maintaining your family in general so that other people can rely on you if things come up. You have the responsibility to your friends so that you can be a good friend. You have the responsibilities of an entire lifetime to figure out. And it's hard for a lot of people to figure out where their responsibilities lie. It's difficult for a lot of people to say, I need to do this, and therefore I will. And in particular, lately, a lot of people have become completely enamored with the idea that they have the entitlement to all of these rights without having any responsibility that comes along with them. You might have the right to some sort of a governmental program, but you also have the responsibility not to misuse it. You also have the responsibility to make sure that you remove yourself from that the very second that it becomes feasible to do so. You have the responsibility to your neighbors to maintain your area such that you are not a burden onto anyone else, just as much as you have the right to live in an area that is nice to live in. The second you're unable to take on your responsibilities is the very second that somebody else has to take on your responsibilities. So your inability to take care of your responsibilities impedes on other people's rights to their own free enjoyment of their life. What can you do to make it better? If you find yourself in a situation where you're not taking on your responsibilities, where you're not becoming a valued member of society, if you find that you don't have the understanding of your responsibilities such that you can find a place to start very small. It's kind of a joke or a meme now with people who happen to like or hate Jordan Peterson, where the joke is clean your room. Well, it's true. It's something very, very small that you can start with and focus on. Oftentimes, people whose lives are very disordered, who are not taking our responsibilities, they have unhealthy living conditions. Either it's messy, or it's that they don't eat well, or they otherwise don't take care of themselves properly, or the people around them, if they happen to, for some reason, be in the care of somebody else, or have the care of somebody else. Have someone else under their care. That's what I meant. So you start by cleaning your room. You start by getting a job. How many people right now don't have a job? It's okay if you don't like your job. The fun thing about having the responsibility of having a job and actually taking it seriously is that more often than not, it will lead to something else. Someone will see something in you and they will say, I have this opportunity available. Would you like it? Or they'll say, you have taken on such a great responsibility. You have shown yourself to be reliable. You've shown yourself to be a good person to have around, and therefore I have opportunities that I'm willing to give to you. How nice would it be if you picked up responsibility for stuff in your family and suddenly people could rely on you? Suddenly you had the right to have a great family because you took on the responsibility of making sure that your family was put together in a way that was going to be great. If you take on these things and you create things that are better by taking the biggest responsibility you can handle. That's basically that's Jordan's thing. If you take on the biggest responsibility that you can imagine, and that you can feasibly handle, and you work on that and you get better, then your abilities become bigger and greater, and the things that you do become more impressive, and then people know that they can rely on you. People know that you are responsible. That's something I never understood when I was a kid. When I was even a young adult, there was a lot of people who they weren't saying it well, and I think that's why I didn't fully accept it, but also because I was involved in a lot of bad idea hubs at the time, and they did not respect the idea of responsibilities. In fact, they completely skirted the idea of responsibilities. You need to have responsibilities, and I tell you that from experience. I came from not knowing what it was that I wanted out of life, and not knowing what I was capable of, and thinking, quite frankly, that I was not capable of anything. And a big part of that was because I never took on the responsibility of trying. I never took on the responsibility of looking around and seeing what was going to be something interesting, and seeing how far I could go in anything. But I had a right to all of this free stuff. I had a right to live here. I had a right to do all of these, whatever I wanted, because it's a free world, and I had the right to it. But I didn't want to take on the responsibilities that would have more quickly led to me having a good life that I enjoy. And I know that story is common with so many people. It is practically the idea of becoming an adult. The way that you become a true, realized, mature adult is by taking on responsibilities. In the older days, usually that meant having a family relatively young so that you had people who relied on you naturally. You had to take on the responsibility of these children. You had to take on the responsibility of the job that you had or the household so that you could have a family that raised these children in a way that was going to be good for them. We don't usually these days tend to take that to heart anymore, which is unfortunate because this is so good for people. It's so good for children. It's so good for families. It's so good for the world. The importance of the nuclear family is the responsibility that comes with it. It's the responsibility to the other people. It's the responsibility to the community. It's the responsibility to a good life. And taking that away is one of the things that seems to be leading to having a tougher time having an integrated society where we all understand one another. The other thing about rights is rights don't give you meaning. Rights don't do anything. They're given to you, and especially if you understand them as specifically and solely given to you, you certainly don't associate them with having any meaning aside from I deserve this, I'm entitled to this. Responsibilities, on the other hand, give you meaning. They give you reason to get up. They give you things that you need to do. They give you something that you can look at and say, I did that. I managed to make that. I worked hard and therefore I got something. I took on my responsibilities and I built something from that. That's the power of your responsibilities. That is the power of taking on and doing something so that you can build something better. It's the responsibility to earn the rights that are graciously given to you by deserving them. You are not entitled to rights. You come to deserve them. The reverse of that is if you don't take on responsibility, if you focus solely on rights, if you focus on solely on entitlements, then you lose the value that comes from your responsibilities. You take the value out of your life in a literal sense. You take away what you gain from taking on your responsibilities. You lead a worthless life because if all you do is rely on other people to give you things, you have nothing. You have earned nothing. You have no meaning. You have no value. All you have is gift. All you have is meaningless rights. So let's say that you're not taking on your responsibilities. Let's say that you feel completely out of sorts and you don't know where to go, but you don't know what to do about it. Well, I actually work as a behavior therapist. So one of the things that we do is we break every action down into the smallest pieces that are necessary. So if a kid cannot write the letter A, then you break it down into 1 line, 2 line, and 3 line. And maybe it's that you spend 2 weeks working on just that line before you move on to the second one. And that's the smallest piece that you need to go. Maybe even less than that, you need to work on holding a pencil. The point is that you break things down to the smallest level that is necessary to perform the action and to move on to the next step. You build by mastering small steps. So maybe you need to work simply on putting away your plates when you're done with them. You need to work on maybe making your own meals 1 day a week. Maybe you need to work on cleaning. Maybe you need to work on caring for somebody. Maybe you need to work on changing your outlook on your job so that it's not a trudging thing to go to. Maybe it's that you need to start looking for a new job because you simply can't stand the one that you're at. Maybe you need to fix up your living space. Maybe you need to fix up your workspace. Maybe you need to spend less time doing something that you know is bad. Maybe you need to start doing things that you know are moral. Maybe you need to mend a broken relationship. Maybe you need to find a way to stop lying to yourself and others. Maybe that's where you start. When you catch yourself saying something that you know not to be true, and you have a visceral reaction, stop there. That's a great place to start. That's a great place to start building morality too, by the way. And then you can start building on that. You can start doing good things. You can start helping people and helping yourself and building yourself as this person that you like and that people enjoy being around and that people enjoy helping out. And you can become this person full of responsibility that people know is reliable. You can become this person who people know is a really good person because you show it by your actions. So this is where you start. You find a small actionable goal to start with. One thing that you need to improve on. One thing that you know you can take responsibility for in your life. And you start there. And you write it down. And you stick it somewhere where you have to look at it every day, maybe multiple times a day. And you hold yourself to it. You hold yourself to taking on your responsibilities. When you start taking those steps, they build on each other. It's like drawing the A. You might have to start at just holding the pencil, but when you can do that, you can start doing the first line. And when you get that down, you can do the next line. And before you know it, you've got the entire alphabet. And before you know that, you're writing paragraphs. And before you know that, you're doing fine. You build on everything that you learn so that you're able to do more things. When you take on more responsibilities, you become more responsible. When you take on more responsibilities, you give your life more meaning. When you take on more responsibilities, when you build on these things every single day, you build yourself into a better person who you like, who is very good to other people, who is nice to be around, and who is not annoying. I was really annoyed by myself for a very long time, and then I actually took responsibility for my life. I took responsibility for the things that I was doing, was probably the first thing I did. I took responsibility for the things that I was doing, and I said, I can't keep doing this. This is not useful. And instead I said, I'm going to do this, and this is going to be helpful. I took big steps, and it led to better things, and I am much better with my life now because of the fact that I took on the responsibilities that led to me finding out how to be a mature adult and a properly realized mature adult. And I'm still working on it. I'm going to work on it for the rest of my life. The whole point of your life is to find out where you can possibly end up. Aim high. You don't have to lay it out right now because it's going to change. You're going to think that one thing is your aim, and then you're going to get somewhere and you're going to realize, oh, it's different. Start by defining some things that you can take responsibility for. They can be very, very small. In fact, they probably should be, so that you are confident that you can build on them. And then, once you have learned that you can take responsibility, you start building goals. And they don't have to be big. They can be small goals as long as they get you moving forward. And after you take your small goals and you figure out where you want to be, you start breaking that down into tiny steps that'll lead you there. You think, how far down do I need to go? How small of a piece do I need? The smallest piece you need is the smallest piece that you can actually do without becoming so frustrated that you give up. Whatever that is, you need to figure it out and you need to define it, but find those steps and lay them out and start. Actionable goals mean things that you can do. And by the way, they have to be personal goals too. You can't say, I want to change the world. If you actually mean that, you better define that very specifically. Or, I want to solve climate change. Again, if you really, really, really want to do that, you need to find a way that is personal. So maybe the smallest goal you take is, I'm going to stop buying so many disposable things. That's a good start. And it's personal. It's something that you can do. If your goals rely on other people, it's not a good goal, okay? So get your goals, lay them out, start with your responsibilities that you're going to take on so that you can build, and then make your actions. And then start building big goals. Start building things that you can aim at that are incredible and find ways to get there. Because you can, and I know you can. You are very good at doing things as long as you actually take on the responsibility of doing it. And then you will earn the right to be a mature adult. You will earn the right to a good job. You will earn the right to a family, the right to good food, the right to great friends, the right to an enjoyable life. That is how you build that. Lay it out and do it. We'll talk about this more. Maybe we'll break it down into smaller steps if you need help getting there. But thank you for talking about rights and responsibility with me. We're going to pull this all together next time, and it's going to be interesting. So I'll see you next time.